Today we have Jackie. She has an old balayage as well as old copper Demi. And today's objective is to soften up her hair color. We want to make it a little bit more natural, as well as soften the face frame that she has, make that blend in a little bit better too, as well as give her a choppier, more textured lived-in haircut. We feel like her hair is kind of just flat, just kind of hanging around her face. So I really want to, like sexy it up, jazzify it up. Before I get started with any color or cut for that matter, I spend roughly like 20 minutes playing with their hair, kind of seeing how it lays, pushing it in different directions. I do this because I want to see what are my parameters, what can I get away with, what really suits her. Doing a thorough consultation is extremely important to me. Being on the same page as your client is probably the best thing that you could ever do, being behind the chair. The number one reason why people leave their stylist is because they're not on the same page and they don't listen. So even though I work with Jackie, it's still really important to me to figure out what it is exactly that she's looking to do. I start off by doing 5 NB and 6 BC equal parts. I did this because I wanted to work with some of the warmth that she already had, and I wanted to make it more of a softer, richer brown. Her natural level is sitting at probably a 5, almost 5.4, and I wanted to enhance some of the warmth that she had as well as neutralize it at the same time. So it might sound redundant that I'm adding BC, but I wanted to add the brown because the brown in Kenra Professional is actually violet based. So it's going to neutralize some of that yellow, some of that warmth. The copper is going to play off of the natural brown in the NB, and it's just going to create a soft, rich brunette without that red hue. I'm actually using Beyond Bond with this, but I wanted to point out we have these caps on our Lighteners that are pop caps. We do this because it ensures a tight seal after opening up our Lightener, and it keeps it nice and organized. I color coordinate my bowls. White is for Lightener and clear bowls are for color. I have Kenra Professional Beyond Bond in one bowl with 20 volume, and then I also have Kenra Professional Clay Lightener with 30 volume in the other. My 5NB 6BC formula was mixed at a 1-to-1 ratio. I did 3 ounces, so 1.5 and 1.5 to 3 ounces of black developer, which is 9 volume. I'm going to start out by painting the nape area. I did a deep V. The reason why I did this is because I want to create a backdrop essentially for all of the color that I'm about to do. Without dark, blonde does not have anything to stand against. And the reason why I'm painting her low light is because I don't want to create a stark line of demarcation. This creates more of a natural faded effect, and it's really important that I do that because I'm not trying to make her hair look unnatural. Now I'm going to follow the same section from that V, from the top of the V to the other side of the top of the V, creating a nice triangle. What I'm going to do is a nice deep weave. That inner weave is going to be dark, and the 2 outer weaves are going to be light. I'm taking my Framar tint brush and my Framar balayage board, and I'm going to be painting my highlights on. This is Kenra's Clay Lightener with 30 volume. I'm then going to take that underneath deep weave and make that dark, making sure that my blonde is going to have something to pop against. I'm still, yet again, going to hand paint it through the top and then saturate through the ends, creating a more natural lived-in effect. So this step is really important. I'm allowing her hair to show me where to part. I personally do not subsection or pre-section before I do anything. The reason being is because it's important to follow where the hair falls. Her hair splits directly in the back of her head, so I don't want to put a foil and put lines right there because I know that's where it's going to split. Moving on, I'm going from temple to nape. I'm going to take those deep subsections and I'm going to do the same thing I was doing earlier, those weaves, thicker weaves of light and dark. Each section I'm still doing thicker weaves, light, dark, light. And what I'll do is every section I'll do the opposite placement. So if it goes dark, dark, I'll switch it and go light, dark, light. The reason why is I want to make sure that my light pieces have something to stand against and those dark pieces stand out on their own. You can quite literally call this sectioning diagonal backs because I am going diagonal back and I'm just allowing her head to show me where to go. Right around the face though, I'm going to be doing some intentional hand painting and weaving with the dark. You're going to notice that I create a tiny little diamond section through the top of the head and I'm actually going to weave those. The reason being is I want to keep right around the face really piecey. I don't want it to fall flat. I don't want it to get muddled together. And the back, I'm still going to glaze down. I'm going to do a teardrop glazing method, but the point of this is to make sure you have all the dimension around the face and then let it settle out through the back of the head. I find that doing this with finer hair makes the finer hair look thicker, especially the focal point is the face. So I want to make sure that I am giving her all of the wow and the pizzazz around the face, but then allowing the face to stand out more than the back. You see those beautiful deep pockets? Love it. Cannot wait to see how it all comes together. But something that I wanted to point out is while I was doing this, I was noticing that there are certain densities on the sides of her head. And that's exactly why I don't pre-section. I noticed that the placement, even though I was following exactly the same placement, I was doing exactly the same sectioning, the sections were different. And I actually did less foils on that one side versus the other. This is where I'm demonstrating the foils ended up meeting up, but I did less foils on her left side than her right. And it was because her density was different on the right. That beautiful little diamond section is exactly where I'm going to start baby lighting, and I'm going to show you how. Those two back panels that are right underneath this triangle section are light. So I'm gonna make sure that my sectioning is gonna be intentional. I don't want it too far up. I wanna create a pocket for that light to pop against. So I'm gonna do some thicker weaving. I'm not gonna do some traditional highlighting, a little bit thicker than that. And with that, the underneath piece, the pieces that I'm weaving out and that deeper, wider triangle that's going to be created after this is exactly where that dark's going to go. So the top is going to be lighter, and then that piece that I'm pulling down is going to be the darker part. Always creating dimension, always being very intentional about where I'm placing everything. The brush I'm using for this application is actually called the 0-time system brush. This brush makes doing foil work like this or any melting, any glazing a freaking dream. You'll see that I'm using my 8x11 foils, which are my wider foils by Framar, and then I'm going to take my nice and wide 0-time system brush. All right, moving on to the face frame. I'm gonna put some baby lights right against the face. How I do this is I actually put the comb against the scalp and I basically vibrate in between the hairs. This is going to get the closest foil possible and get all those baby hairs in my section. Notice how I'm using her head basically as a backboard. This is really important because you want to get as close to the hairline as possible without creating any lines, any demarcation, and any inconsistent lift. It's okay to use their head. Their head is there for you to use. I'm going to do 2 back-to-back micro slices like this right against the hairline. I'm going to do that consistently all around the hairline. I'm doing that because I want a pow factor, but I also still want to keep it as natural looking as possible. So not too many highlights I'll do back-to-back. All right, so now I've taken a subsection and now I've done a baby light and I'm going to just continue this up the head. But you'll start to notice is I'm not foiling quite as close to the root as I was before. The reason being is I want to create a teardrop effect. So I want it to gradually meet with the back of the head. This is going to create blending with that face frame. I don't like to use the word money piece because money piece can sometimes sound like a big chunk of blonde around the face. So this technique is really just face framing. I'm framing her face with her hair. All right, we've gotten her rinsed out. As you can see here, that dark, light, dark. So freaking excited about that. That means that she's gonna have tons of dimension and it's gonna look freaking awesome. But now it's time to be super intentional about where we're putting this final glaze. I'm creating a section from the top of the ear to the other side of the top of the ear. And I'm gonna drag my glaze down to essentially the nape. Sorry, that's a I'm trying to fix my glove. I'm gonna drag it down to the nape, almost to the bottom of the neck. And the reason why I'm doing this is I know that the blonde that I just put at the top, where the crown is gonna sit right against that area. So I wanna make sure that that blonde has something for it to pop off of. You're melting with the final result in mind. At this point, I've created a subsection from the temple to the crown area going at a diagonal. I'm going to be root melting at a diagonal as well. As you guys can see, I'm pointing it with my hands. The reason why I'm doing this is, yet again, you want to end glaze with your final result in mind. So that back part of my diagonal at the crown, I'm going to be dropping that lower than at the temple. So at the temple, I'm going to go about 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to drag it down even further when I get closer to the crown area, about almost 3 inches. Here is a cool little pro tip for you guys. Add a little bit of water when you're doing melting like this. It helps alleviate that line of demarcation and it allows you to smudge the color even better. But I essentially just sectioned out the face frame. I'm going up the head at the middle part, making sure to follow that diagonal line. 3 inches in the back, 1.5 in the front, and that's it. I'm gonna do that for the entire duration of this color melt. Okay, so now we're moving to the face frame. I'm going to section this into 3 sections. The section through the top closest to the dark that I've already done, I'm going to smudge about 2 inches down, and then I'm going to use a foil to separate the hair from that back piece. I don't want it to transfer. Now the second piece, I'm going to go about 1.5 inches down. The third piece, I'm going to go 1 inch down. And the very last piece, which is right against the face, I'm just going to lightly tap. This is what's going to diffuse the hair into the back of her head. I'm going to follow this pattern all the way around her hairline. The section that is the furthest away from her hairline is going to get smudged down the farthest. And then, of course, the hair that is directly against the face is going to get smudged the least. We process for 20 minutes, and this is our final result. Isn't she beautiful? Guys, if you love this tutorial, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell all your friends to watch all my beautiful tutorials. I did an awesome texturized cut with her hair too to get rid of how heavy her hair was. She has tons of body, tons of life, and I will happily give you guys a tutorial on how to cut fine hair as well.